Waste management predominantly employs the local, I would say natives who do not have like formal education and stuff like that. So usually what they do is they have like unions and, you know, um, most of these like citizens are, people who are not predominantly, I would say like highly educated and stuff like that.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Nairobi Gold Rush Podcast, where basically our goal is to help you get the gold here in East Africa. We're interviewing all the top executive leaders in Nairobi, the entrepreneurs who are shaping the country. And today we have a very special guest with us. We have Martin Tumusiime, and he's going to be joining us. And he is the CEO of YoWaste, coming to us directly from Kampala. He's in town today to talk to us about his great company. So welcome, Martin, to the podcast.
Thank you, Scott.
Yes. So really, I guess as we get started, why don't you just really quickly tell us, about your company? Tell us, what is YoWaste? What are you guys doing?
Yeah. As Kidia stated, my name is Martin Tumusiime. From Kampala, Uganda. My company is called YoWaste. I'm the CEO and founder.
Mhm.
YoWaste was founded 6 years ago,
Nice.
and we're a tech-enabled waste management company. Of course, tech is important because we are leveraging technology, especially the use of a location-based mobile app to connect homes, small businesses in urban communities to local waste collection services in their communities. Some can think of us like an Uber for waste.
Yeah, that's a pretty interesting thought, because usually when you think of waste management, I don't think tech is usually the first idea people think about when picking up the trash and things like that. And so maybe how did you come about this idea? That seems like a pretty fascinating idea to think about.
Yeah, so your waste, of course, comes from like my personal experiences. I grew up from like western part of Uganda,
Mhm.
but for my higher academics, I moved to come and live and study within Kampala. And during that time, I was living with an aunt in one of the city suburbs, and I get realized how waste management is such a very, very big challenge for people who live in urban communities. Because when you look at rural communities, basically what you generate as waste can be the foods can be put in the gardens to work as manures, etc. But in the cities, people rely a lot on external waste haulers.
Yeah, there's no place to
Yeah,
keep
to
it.
put keep the waste. Yeah, they
And
have
you
limited land
and I
and
guess you don't
etc.
want people burning the waste all over the place there in the middle of the city.
Yeah, it becomes a nuisance.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they rely more on waste collection services to come and pick their garbage and take it for disposal.
Mhm.
The problem is there's limited service in most of these cities.
Mhm.
Most areas are not covered, especially the low income and you know, especially the low income household. They're not serviced by existing waste collection companies. So I, as a computer science student at university, I felt I could actually do much impact by developing a technological solution that could help connect people like my aunt and the neighboring communities to waste collection, efficient and reliable waste collection, so that they do not have to struggle a lot with their uncollected garbage, either dumping it in water channels or burning it, but something which is a little bit much more safer.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's how your waste came about.
And so your experience with, so you come from Western Kenya. Where in Western Kenya are you? I mean, not Western Uganda. Where in
Yeah.
Western Uganda are you coming from?
Yeah, so I grew up from Hoima.
Uh-huh.
It's a small town neighboring
Mm-hmm.
Congo,
Yeah. Nice.
DRC. Yeah, that's where I grew up from.
And so there, I guess, what was the experience like for waste collection there? Was it just maybe burning the trash, or like you mentioned, you could kind of use the stuff for manure is basically what would happen, or
Yeah, actually, when you're living like in rural areas, you never even really think about waste because
yeah.
it's never a challenge at all.
Uh-huh.
Usually, food leftovers are either given to poultry or to piggery.
Mhm.
The farms.
Mhm.
Basically, as the food is always reused.
Yeah.
What you have left, which occasionally is not always the case in rural areas because the consumption patterns are not like the way they're in urban areas,
Yeah.
you hardly have plastics and all those other
Yeah.
kinds of waste.
Maybe more the glass bottles, things like that.
Yeah, yeah.
So
So
people reuse what they, a lot of reuse when
yeah,
possible.
yeah. It's the biggest waste composition is the organic waste,
Mhm.
but people have a use for that, unlike in urban areas. So it was never really such a challenge that I had encountered while living in such a setting.
Yeah. Well, and different cities are operate a little bit differently. Like if you go to, let's say Kigali in Rwanda, it's very clean, very nice. I would say Nairobi's a lot of places on the lower end of the waste collection.
Yeah,
Same with Kampala. I always feel like Kampala seems to be making some good strides, but a lot of the places are quite dirty compared to a lot of areas. Why do you think that is? Like what are some more of the challenges that you see that people have with just that waste collection?
yeah. So waste management across, I would say, many sub-Saharan African cities
Yeah.
is predominantly privatized.
Mhm.
And what that means is local governments or municipalities or counties,
Yeah.
they do not have like enough resources to offer this service for their cities and communities.
Yeah.
So they tend to have like private entrepreneurs
Mhm.
come up and step up,
Yeah.
collaborate with government, and be able to provide like a service to these communities.
Yeah. So, for instance, let's say you're living in an informal settlement, like we have these places, Kibera, or these very large places. How does that work? Because I know these private companies, they usually charge money to come in and collect waste. I mean, is it the same situation there? Somebody's having to pay to have their waste collected, or
Yeah,
we have the flying toilets where people just throw their waste.
yeah.
They just throw it somewhere. Is that kind of in the informal settlements is how it's done? It's just that people can't afford to pay, so they just throw their waste places.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
if you look at Kampala, because that's
Yeah.
predominantly the market we work in,
Yeah.
um, Kampala is about 450,000 households.
Yeah. That's a lot.
Yeah. 200,000 is like informal slums
Hmm.
or informal settlements or low income neighborhoods.
Yeah.
You have about about 200 or something
Yeah.
being middle class like neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Then you have about 50,000 being high income neighborhoods.
Hmm.
Now, usually the municipal trucks will
Uh-huh.
always cater for the low income households,
Yeah.
though not efficiently enough.
And those are, I guess, fully paid for by the government or supposed to be.
Yes, yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
because in those communities, people cannot, I mean, they're trying to struggle for the basics needs,
Yeah.
food, like that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can't tell them pay this amount for waste collection and they'll be able to what?
Mhm.
To pay it. So what YoWaste, our major focus is ideally the middle income households because most of them have the power to pay for the service,
Yes.
but they're not still getting like the best service.
Yeah. Okay.
And they always end up either burning it or dumping it in water channels or
Okay.
paying someone
Yeah.
to go and dump it somewhere.
Yeah. And so they're kind of typically the standard model might be they might contract with a company, or somebody that that they pay on a monthly basis to come by and
Yeah.
and pick the rubbish is typically, I guess, the traditional model.
Yeah. So what we do different, of
Yeah.
course, is we try to give as much flexibility
Mhm.
and reliability to the waste generators. So take an example of Home X in a neighborhood in Kampala.
Mhm.
They've been struggling with the existing service provider. They're not efficient. They take maybe 4 weeks in a month without showing up. That's literally they didn't show up in the whole month.
Uh-huh.
They're trying to struggle like with their entire service.
Yeah.
Our solution comes in because it's a mobile app.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's convenient. Someone can simply register themselves, onboard themselves onto our service.
Uh-huh.
Then, depending on the area you are, we may be able to allocate like a waste collection company
Uh-huh.
that we have in our network or that we have like a special agreement with to occasionally service you.
Yeah.
In some areas, it's our own trucks. So we try to give them like a platform where they're able to know, to get like some form of access to information. Like, so for example, is the truck coming tomorrow?
Yeah.
To always send out like a notification a day before, tell them, oh, put out your waste so the truck can pick it.
And so like I've had this happen to me before, right? I mean, maybe I have a waste service who comes regularly to pick my garbage, but sometimes they don't come. Like they might, we go out there, look like 2 weeks, and like it's just piling.
Yeah.
Would it be a situation where I could call your company on a one-off to come, like, hey, this week could you come?
Yeah.
Can you send a provider out to take care of my service, or is it more like people are registering on more like a monthly service with you, or I guess a mixture of both?
Yeah. So we offer two key services.
Yeah.
One is a recurring service, which is what many people predominantly know, where you sign up once a year, and these guys come according to a frequency, maybe once every week, and pick up your trash.
Yeah.
But we also have like an on-demand waste pickup where you say, look, I have these glass bottles. I don't know what to do with them.
Yeah.
Can you guys come and pick them and take them for recycling?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you just use our mobile app, schedule like a pickup, we come, we pick it and take it for a recycling. Or it could be plastic bottles, it could be the regular trash, or any other different materials, even the hard ones, to find a solution for. Usually you can be able to use like our mobile app to access such a service.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting, because I know, like, for instance, I drink these sparkling water, these liter sparkling waters and these plastic bottles, right? And my wife is about to kill me. She says, I can't, you're throwing these in the rubbish, and like, we want to separate them and take them to recycling, but there's no good alternatives. The alternatives are limited, or you have to take them yourself, maybe put them in the vehicle and go, drive 20 kilometers to the place that will collect them. So you guys really also kind of help focus on the recycling side of things, it seems like.
Yeah.
Or can handle some of those use cases.
Yeah, recycling is like a very like big use case for like our solution. Yeah, because we help people like connect them to that collection for their recycling.
Yeah,
from their households or small business to the intended recycling center. You don't have to do the whole work for yourself. Yeah.
Well, you mentioned about how you started the company. You kind of had this idea and saw it. I mean, it seems like pretty brave to, say I'm gonna go into waste management, right? Because what I usually think of, like, when a guy starts a waste management company, it's like you get a huge truck, you're having to dig in that dirty things, and with all the, all the things that people put in the trash. Did you kind of have that experience when you started, or were you able to like partner with somebody from the beginning?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very interesting one, because when we started out with waste management, I would say the first 3 years were all learnings, because I mean, it's one thing. My background is a computer scientist.
Yeah.
But when you talk of waste, it's a whole different like learning curve. I think when we started out, our idea was, developing this mobile app that could connect people like my aunt to reliable and affordable waste collection companies that work within their area, who can come and pick up their waste and dispose it off safely. So in the early stages, we collaborated with our first company, and it opened us to the like whole different world of the waste, or the trash business, right? Especially like in our communities. How do people pack the garbage? Because in most communities, actually most people don't know how, beyond just maybe putting out their trash and going, they don't know what happens, where does the waste go, and all
what
the things.
happens, and it's a big mystery.
Yeah, so we had to learn like all that on the job. So actually in the early stages, we just developed like a flyer. Yeah. We signed up like a waste collection company, and then we went like to a certain neighborhood. We gave out like these flyers, like, oh, in case you need someone to take out your garbage and is reliable, simply call this phone line. Yeah, we shall be able to take it. Then immediately after the first day of giving out those flyers, we had 5 people calling, and then we were like, okay,
now we need a truck or something.
Now we need someone to pick it. Then we reach out to the waste collection company. We tell them, look, we have 5 clients here who say they need their trash to be taken tomorrow. Then this guy is like, no, we don't do that. I can't just simply divert a whole truck and bring it to just service 5 people. It doesn't make economic sense. I need to know of these clients 3 weeks before. Actually, the best I can do for you is 1 week before, so that I make plans to come and pick garbage from all these
Yeah.
different areas. And that was like a setback because we had promised the
Yeah.
people
You had people
we are
waiting.
different. You just call us today. Tomorrow we shall be at your doorstep to pick up that trash. So that was a learning
And how
curve.
did you handle that situation? Did you just tell them, sorry, we can't do anything?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
we basically had to go back to the West Collection Company and we were like, look, we didn't know from our early engagement, we didn't know this is how it's supposed to happen.
Yeah.
But of course, we have a reputation to fulfill for these guys. But
Right.
can you let us know how does this actually work?
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you mean you need to know in advance, like a week before, something like that?
Yeah.
How do we chip in clients who want like on demands?
Sure.
Yeah. So I think the conversation we had was predominantly telling us how their whole scheduling process works.
Yeah.
So if someone comes, let's say this week, and it is a Tuesday, you can be able to schedule them in Tuesday the other week. So you give the waste collector ample time to be able to adjust to that schedule. But also, these guys always have like schedules. Maybe on a Monday, I'm on this route.
Yeah.
Maybe in Karen or in Kilimani, in those areas.
Right.
So we realized that we actually need their route plans. Yeah. On a Monday, where do you work? On a Tuesday, where do you work? On a Thursday, where do you work? So when someone calls in that they need someone to come and pick their trash, we looked at the schedule like, okay, actually, according to your area, we can be able to make it on a Thursday.
Yeah.
To
Exactly.
our surprise, people were actually more accommodating of that because I think all they wanted was someone who is good at communicating. If it is a Thursday, let it be a Thursday.
Yeah.
Do not tell me tomorrow and you don't show up, or Thursday and you do not show
Yeah.
up.
That's
Yeah.
what's important. Yeah. Because I mean, usually you can wait a day or two for the trash to build up, and
Yeah.
you have the bins or something that you can store it in for a couple of days, as long as you know somebody's coming.
Yeah.
That's kind of critical. I guess that's where the tech kind of comes in. Now you're coordinating. I'm assuming multiple trash providers now. Collection companies, and you need to know their schedules and everything. Is that kind of part of
Yeah.
your solution in a way, or I
Yeah.
guess have you moved more to managing your own trucks now? Like what? How does it
So
work?
I think after that experience, we developed like a simple. The interesting story is, and I think this is a problem for software
Yeah.
engineers or
Yeah.
coders. Our first product was as simple as you do a schedule, then within you match someone to the waste collector, and they expect like a service in 5 minutes or 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So
I
now we
know.
realize that doesn't work.
Yeah.
So we go back and of course give out the flyers. Then from the flyers, we realize, okay, let's make like a simple scheduling, a one-page kind of mobile app.
Yeah.
Now we begin promoting that. The thing with apps is you have people subscribing from any part of the city.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have one subscribing from a different corner of the city.
Yeah.
You have another one trying to schedule like a pickup
So
from a different
yeah.
side of the
So
city.
one guy's
Yeah.
Chivando, and then one's down here in Entebbe, and
Yeah. So it's like
come on the,
20 kilometers apart.
Yeah.
And literally no waste collector drives that long
Yeah.
just to gun service people from different areas. Then we're like, you know what? Maybe we can get a waste collector who works in this particular area.
Yeah.
We get one who works in this area.
Yeah.
They already have like clients in that particular area.
Sure. Yeah.
And it's like we're just adding them business. Yeah.
Okay.
We're adding them more customers.
Yeah.
And we are guaranteeing their payments. Client will pay to us, we shall pay to them, and they do not have to struggle. All they have to do is do what they do best: go and pick people's trash, take it for disposal, and stuff like that. So we were able to like try now to start reaching out to more waste collection companies, trying to sell them our value proposition, onboarding them, and within like a few months, we had about 20, 30 waste collection companies.
Wow.
On our platform. Yeah. And we start, signing up like different customers from different areas. Maybe we have about 5 customers per waste collection companies.
Yeah.
And we are now piloting and seeing how, okay, this is starting to make sense for people.
Yeah.
See, I think that's how we were able to grow from just, one waste collection company to from 5 customers to now about 40 of these. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. And it's seems very similar to what at my company, SafeBoda, it seems like we have the same technical kind of challenges. So at SafeBoda, what we do is, we have a package delivery service. We have people want on-demand package delivery. So, come to my house and pick up a package and have it delivered. But a lot of times businesses, maybe they're not so flexible, right? Maybe it's a Carrefour, supermarket or something, and they want to send 20 orders out to different places, and they need to schedule it basically like, oh, from 1 to 3 p.m. I can do deliveries then. And so it seems like a very similar technical type of challenges across apps that we're dealing with a lot of the same type of technical challenges, I guess, or problems.
Yeah.
Like scheduling is a big thing that people like to have in their services.
Yeah.
And they sometimes they want on demand, sometimes they want like a more scheduled. So it's good that you guys have this kind of scheduled system where you have found that the customers are like okay with that
Yeah.
kind of service, right?
Yeah.
Seems they're pretty comfortable with it. Well, what kind of well, I have a couple of questions. So one, when you talk to guys and they say I work in waste management, I always think of like the mobsters, the Tony Sopranos. They always say I work in waste management or something. Now I don't know. Obviously, you know that,
Yeah.
but do you ever kind of get people saying that to you? Like, what do you really do when you do waste management?
Yeah, I've actually had like conversations with potential investors, and they ask me, "But how do you deal with the mafias or the we like to call it internally the local politics
Yeah, the
of
cartels or whatever.
yeah, trying to control territories and what,
Yeah.
which is a big thing when you look at our industry.
Yeah.
In the make of our industry, waste management relies on exclusivity.
Yes.
So let's say if I come to say Kilimani in Nairobi,
Yeah.
for me to make economic sense, I need to own the entire Kilimani. Like for the roads to make
you need
sense.
to control that area.
Yeah,
anyway.
for the roads to make sense, because you don't want to have a truck which services 5 clients in Kilimani.
Yeah.
Karen, you have, which is a long distance, I would
Yeah.
imagine,
Yeah.
another 10 clients. You'd rather have the whole of Kilimani so that your trucks are moving on the roads, literally door to door.
Yeah.
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 Goes, does one trip, then it comes back another door to door to
I
door.
guess that's mainly the fuel costs and just
It makes it more expensive.
how much time you spend traveling.
Yeah. So predominantly in the past, municipalities have given like exclusive rights to few waste collection companies.
Yeah.
And some of them have developed like a strong muscle because now they're generating good monies. Now they try now to, try to fight the smaller players because they don't want anyone else to come and eat on their cake.
Yeah.
Now that's something we didn't know when we are coming in West. In Kampala, we don't have like mafias or anything like that.
Right. Well, I mean, they're kind of informal ones maybe or something.
Yeah. It wasn't that case. Of course, you had like a few players who are trying to control their territory.
Yeah.
They're seeing this whole app and technology thing. They're like, no way, this can't take can't take over like our territory.
I mean, imagine a guy in a suit walking in and just like, hey, you come into my area, we're gonna have a problem, and I'll break your arm, or
Yeah, we usually put like stickers of powered by YoWaste on our partners' trucks, and of course the thing is usually we have always had these issues where a truck goes in a particular area, and these guys show up and they confiscate it. And they're like, you're not allowed to work here.
Yeah, when you say confiscated, I mean they
take the truck.
Yeah,
they take it like to a city council hall or something.
Yeah. Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, to tell them like, look, these guys are in our neighborhood. They're not supposed to be working here.
Yeah.
If it's an app or whatever it is, why don't they, I don't know, figure out ways of working without stepping on our toes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess this happens with even the third party companies you're contracting out to, or does it mainly happen with your own personal vehicles?
Yeah, it's
both.
Yeah, it's a something because in the early stages when we were working with the third party contractors, it's you hardly sign up the big players on your platform because they are more content.
Yeah.
They literally, I don't know how to put it, but they just want to control their market for themselves.
Yeah.
So you're always working with the smaller players. The disadvantage of small players is sometimes maybe they do not have like permissions to work in certain areas.
Yeah, all the
But
city council permits and everything that you
yeah,
need to.
so in the early stages, we were just leaving it up to them because we didn't want to get involved in such
Uh-huh.
fracases of,
Yeah.
trying to fight for territories and what.
Yeah.
Ours was just like a platform. Someone subscribes, then we connect them to these guys.
Mhm.
There's obligations to make sure that people's trash is taken out and properly disposed of. But then along the journey, as you begin signing up more customers, you begin to realize that, you can't distinguish yourself from their struggles.
Yeah.
Um, their struggles are your struggles, because if at any point in time they can't be able to go to a certain client's location or household to pick that client's trash,
Yeah.
it's your credibility at stake. A client will give you the 1 star. I subscribed and they didn't show up the other day, and the client doesn't care whether you have like the third-party waste collection companies
Right.
that are fulfilling these pickups on your
Yeah.
behalf. It's you didn't
Yeah, they're not
fulfill.
concerned with the details. They just
Yeah,
want it
so
to be taken care of.
you have to like involve yourself and try to now broker agreements between the guys who have the contracts as well as the small players.
Yeah. Well, that
Yeah.
seems very challenging. And then I, don't know so much about the business, but what I've noticed is, and this is using Nairobi as an example, which
Yeah.
I'm assuming there's something similar in Kampala. So, here we have this big trash dump, Dandora trash dump site.
Yeah.
Um, there's been some times when I've wanted to go, like, I did a lot of work out in the Dandora area. It's like an area of Nairobi. And I was like, let's go view the trash dump,
Yeah.
one of the biggest dumps there. And that's not an easy place to go into, because I don't know what they call them, but there's cartels or something. It seems like I don't really understand the politics behind it. It looks like there's lots of guys sifting through all the trash, maybe to collect, and
Yeah.
somebody, like, if I throw my old iPhone in there, and like, oh, I found,
Yeah.
then they're collecting that thing and reselling. Is that something that you I know that's not quite your side of it, but
Yeah,
do you think that's something that happens quite a bit?
it is. You see, waste management predominantly employs the local, I would say, natives who do not have like formal education and stuff like that. So usually what they do is they have like unions and you know, most of these like citizens are, people who are not predominantly, I would say, like highly educated and
Right.
stuff like that.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So they try as much as possible to control their share of, I don't know how they call it, share of the cake or their source of livelihood.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's always the thing. Of course, from the other side, also municipalities are more. They do not want to show like the picture of all things happening in landfills and etc.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of like conflicting interests.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, there are people who are protecting their livelihoods.
Yeah.
There are people who are earning, maybe for every person who's working in the landfill, you have to pay me a certain,
Yeah.
Well,
that's what
cost
that's what I
access.
kind of imagine it. The way I envision it is kind of like how the police works, right? It's like there's a boss who's at the trash landfill, and there's like 20 guys out there sifting through everything.
Yeah.
And he's like, if you find an iPhone, you bring it to me. If you find a nice, whatever people might be throwing away, there's sometimes people throw away nice things.
Yeah.
Is that something that you deal with the trash collection guys that you work with? Are they first sifting through the truck as it goes to the site and taking out the best stuff before?
Yeah. When you look at the waste sector, people who work on the trucks,
Yeah.
We call them the loaders.
Mhm.
They are not really very highly paid.
Yeah.
They're not very highly paid, but they make the difference through recycling.
Yeah.
So what they do is usually, even on the trucks themselves, they're doing like some form of sorting, especially in Kampala.
Yeah.
Most of those guys, literally, much of the recycling happening is because of them. When
Yeah.
they reach at someone's site, they will try to sift through or salvage through like what they think is recyclable.
Mhm.
Maybe they'll take out like the plastic bottles.
Yeah. Glass bottles.
The glass bottles. They'll take out the paper and put it like in a separate big giant bag.
Uh-huh.
Then whatever is left, they will just throw it on top of of the truck.
Yeah.
And usually they will sell these recyclables to the informal traders in the landfills or whatever. to make up the difference, so
So
that
so
they
they
can
sort
go
there,
home.
and so the guys running the trucks,
Mm.
they'll take the recycling profits,
Yeah,
and then you're kind of left with the
yeah,
the leftovers.
yeah. So yeah, usually that is the thing. Yeah, because they usually make like the livelihoods from that. Um, Usually, if you're going to transition to like operating your own material recovery facilities,
Hmm.
which are predominantly a site where trucks now bring the garbage,
Yeah,
and you have like special machines for segregating
yeah.
through
Sort the recycling and
the
all.
recycling
Yeah.
from the waste and etc. Now you need to find ways of including them into that system, because
Hmm.
they need to earn like a livelihood.
Yeah.
And that is somewhere we have actually been looking, like, shifting our business
Uh-huh.
on top of just providing a platform and the waste collection services in these neighborhoods.
Uh-huh.
There's a very big gap when it comes to the end of the waste. How do you handle the waste at the end of its life cycle?
Yeah.
Landfills are no longer sustainable. You
Yeah.
need more modern recycling facilities to turn waste into a resource.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty surprising because, when you see these huge landfills, I never really thought about recycling here like being an industry, right? I mean, it just seems like there's this huge landfills, but I guess like you're saying, there's sort of this not quite informal sector, but there's quite a big recycling movement happening. Is that
Yeah.
what you'd say? Like a lot of the papers and things like that.
Yeah. It's much of it is being supported by the informal sector.
Yeah.
Of course, my philosophy for recycling is pretty much different. I know that there's a big work being done by the informal players,
Yeah.
but for us to move from just the mere 5-10% recycling rates,
Hmm.
we definitely need more modern infrastructure recycling facilities,
Yeah.
um, to
Have
be able
you?
to provide even a better environment for these guys to
Yeah.
operate in.
Have you seen any of the guys trying to recycle crazy things? Like, what's the craziest thing you've seen recycle?
That's the craziest thing I've seen people recycle. Um, I haven't seen like a crazy
Anything?
thing. It's predominantly the typical,
Yeah, just
the,
typical papers and
yeah, the typical
I mean, I've
materials.
seen people, I mean, maybe this isn't so much recycling, but you know how people take, car tires and make shoes out of them, or,
Yeah,
maybe they're making artwork out of the bottle caps and things. I mean, I
yeah,
don't know if that you'd call that, I guess you'd call that recycling, maybe, but
yeah. So
re, re,
there's what we call like upcycling.
yeah,
Then there is recycling.
yeah,
Then there is, of course, the other R as reduce, reuse,
yeah,
etc. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. With recycling,
Recycling is just taking a
you take like
paper, make it
waste.
paper again or something.
Yeah, no, with recycling, you're taking, let's say, waste and making it into a raw material,
Uh-huh.
which can be used to make another.
Yeah.
Yeah, upcycling. That's when maybe you take a tire and make
Make a
like a
shoe or some
shoe.
shoe or something like that.
Yeah,
So I'm
yeah,
sure there's a lot of that happening as well.
yeah,
I remember a story. I don't remember if this was in the U.S. or where it was, but there was the guy. He came up with this idea of recycling the baby diaper, or maybe the nappy, whatever, I don't know what you call it there in Kampala, but
yeah,
yeah, basically he would have people send in the baby diapers, and then he would wash them, and then try to resell them. And of course, the U.S. government shut that one down very quickly because they're like, no matter how long you
yeah,
you you wash this thing, it'll
eh,
never be
yeah.
clean enough to they would do the microscope test or
It
the lab
wasn't
test. It was like, this thing's got so much bacteria in it. There's no way you can clean these things. But yeah, people sometimes get the idea to recycle like crazy.
crazy ways. Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be a crazy one.
Well, yeah, exactly. Well, have you seen anything like? Have you had an experience of like your guys calling you, from the truck, and like some crazy thing that they've found in the people are trying to throw away or caused a problem for your trucks?
With waste, you can never, you always be surprised. I think one crazy scenario I've had, maybe it was about in the early stages, way back like in the 2021s or 2020,
Yeah,
during COVID
yeah, different.
periods. Yeah. You always find like crazy, maybe a body part or whatever, and of course usually protocol, we have to like inform
In the
police,
form of the
and
police. So sometimes there are
because
body parts
yeah,
inside
yeah,
in the waste.
yeah, it's people put like literally everything in their trash.
I mean, I'm assuming they're
Yeah,
they're dead bodies or something that people are a
yeah.
murder case or something.
That always happens a lot as well, like in in landfills and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, because
yeah,
that's what I always, I always imagine like if some, these murder shows, if somebody's going to kill somebody, yeah, why are they just not throwing the body in
in the
the
trash.
waste? But I guess because like you mentioned,
Yeah,
the guys are sorting the papers and
yeah.
everything
It's
right
very hard
there.
to pass, especially in Kampala. It's
Yeah,
very hard to pass their
yeah,
observe.
crazy.
Yeah,
Do the guys
waste
call
items.
you when that happens and say, "Hey, we found a
Yeah,
body"?
and actually the thing is also, um, waste is like in different kinds.
Yeah.
There's items which are not accepted by the landfills.
Uh-huh.
Of course, there's items which can go for recycling
Yeah.
and etc. Now, with homes, especially in most of our communities, people do not know the difference. For example, if you have a dead cat,
Uh-huh.
where do you put it? It's not. I mean, it's not accepted by the landfill.
Yeah.
It's a hazardous item. It's
I-
supposed to be incinerated or something for
Yeah.
disposal. But people will put
Yeah, put the dead cat in there. I
they'll
can
put it in their
imagine
trash.
you
Yeah,
show and you just get like maybe 3 or 4 dead cats there that
yeah.
are.
So people will usually put like that stuff there.
Oh,
Then of course the other interesting one is now maybe someone is shifting and usually like with junk and you go there literally like pouring away, I don't know, beds and very to very important items.
uh-huh.
I
Oh,
mean,
so
it's
like
like,
somebody.
I'm shifting, I'm leaving the country.
Uh-huh.
The landlord asked me to make sure by the time
That you get all
I
your
leave
stuff
the
out.
whole house like
And
clean
so
now.
there's like a lot of nice furniture and things.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So you take there like a whole truck and fancy whatever.
What do you guys do with that? I mean, do the truck guys, they're like, "Oh, I got me a new sofa set, or I've got a new
No, no,
a new
no, no.
fridge."
So we run like our own recycling facility. So
Yeah.
we have our own recycling facility where we try to recover as much materials as possible.
Hmm.
So usually we leave for them the people who are not sorting and separating.
Yeah.
Yeah, but for
I heard a story. There's this Mzungu guy that we knew, and he was leaving the country. He had been living for a few years in Kenya, and he was going to be shifting back to the U.S.
yeah,
So he went online and he was selling his sofa set, and he agreed the price with the person to come pick up the sofa set. I don't remember what the price was, but they agreed to the price.
yeah,
And so the person said, "Yeah, I'll come the day before you shift to pick up the sofa set." Well, when the people came, they said, "You know what? You're leaving anyway, so we're just going to take the stuff for free. We're not going to pay you.
yeah.
And because you're leaving, you have to leave it here anyway. So we'll just come back and get it after you've left the country." So the guy said, "No." He said, "I'll burn the furniture before you
Oh
before you
yeah.
take it." And they're like, "No, we'll come get it." So anyways, he went, he got the petrol, he threw it on the sofa,
Well,
burned the whole thing up in the yard, and I told the people to
now you
go.
can take
Now you can take it.
them.
So I mean, yeah, but like you said, when people have to shift,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
can't always sell your furniture easily, and people are leaving the country, so maybe they have like
yeah. So some people
s-
don't want to go through the hassle of
yeah.
and then trying to resell the items and what they just get a West company.
Hmm.
To them, they're lucky enough they use the YoWaste app and
Yeah.
just scheduling like a junk removal service for
Yeah.
their.
Yeah, that's what I would always wonder about, like these things like sofas, and because I'm assuming people like they even just on a daily basis they want to get rid of those sofas and things, and
Yeah,
just they have an old sofa, like what do they do with it?
yeah. And another interesting one is
Yeah.
e-waste.
Yeah.
We're actually just trying to close like a partner we intend to work with. But e-waste is another thing. People have like those old gadgets, phones, and whatever's in their
Uh-huh.
homes,
Yeah. And
and some, of course, will put it in their regular trash,
mhm.
but some are not like convinced to dispose it off. But it's essentially also not accepted by the landfills.
Yeah, they have those
Um,
lithium batteries and things that
yes, yes, yes,
explode and
yeah,
cause a
yeah.
fire.
So we usually have like an option to provide for them to let's say request to schedule for like a pickup for e-waste.
Yeah.
Then you can reward them maybe points which they can redeem for airtime, mobile money,
Yeah,
and stuff like that.
that sounds
Yeah,
like a good program. It seems like that's much needed, because yeah, if I wanted to had a phone to get rid of, I wouldn't know what to do. I'd probably just throw it in
yeah,
the bin, and
the
I guess
regular trash.
you're
Yeah,
not really supposed to do that. You're supposed to recycle it properly, and Yeah. It's amazing how the amount of this stuff, and what I always kind of wondered, like maybe there could be a service for just helping people to resell their furniture or resell, do all this resale. Because the problem I've seen is like the scammers and
Yeah.
everybody, like when the minute they see that you're trying to sell furniture or sell an old phone or something, like the scammers come out like crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen this, but I mean, like on all the social media, like
Yeah.
any basically anytime I've tried to sell anything secondhand, it's the first thing that happens is the scammer comes.
They're trying to take advantage
Oh
of
yeah,
the
they
entire
said,
situation.
yeah, even if it's like let's say you have a sofa set. Oh, I need to sell my sofa set.
Yeah.
And let's say you're going to sell it for I don't know. Let's say you have a sofa set you're selling for 300,000 Uganda shillings.
Yeah.
You know, then the scammer comes. They're like, you know what? What's your bank details? So you tell them, okay, I accidentally put 600,000 in your bank.
Can you reverse the
But that's
600?
okay. You keep it, but I'm gonna send my guy to come pick the sofa. And then of
Yeah.
course they cancel the check the next day or something. So
Yeah.
I mean, so I guess the point is having your service is quite helpful to deal with all those situations when
Yeah. Something
it's
much more streamlined and
yeah,
structured.
because it just becomes so stressful when you need to get rid of something quickly and you don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
Well, for your company, how's the journey been? I mean, has it kind of been up and down? Like you mentioned through COVID and all of that. How's the journey been over the few years?
Yeah. I mean, for any entrepreneur, it's always like a journey of up and down.
Yeah.
Trying to test out ideas, pivoting, trying out something new, pivoting, trying out something else new. Journey between fundraising and getting money to kickstart you and etc. And that has been our very journey. Um, yeah, when we started out, it was just basically like connecting and making sure people's trash is taken.
Yeah.
Yeah, then along the journey, we also bought like our own trucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, for handling, especially in areas where we were being disappointed by our service providers,
Yeah.
because you have these guys, you have all the contracts, but again, they do not show up. Maybe sometimes because of uh, conditions beyond their, some they couldn't be able to
Yeah. They
help
couldn't
themselves.
manage it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So we also tried out software as a service, just basically giving our product, our platform for managing waste management
Yeah.
to other waste collection
Yeah.
companies.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we realize, okay, but the market is not yet ready for this.
Yeah. It seems
You know,
very advanced for
yeah,
something traditional like that.
yeah. Most of the people in our industry are either digitally. When you talk of digital literacy,
Yeah.
it's really not that high,
Yeah.
and also they're super price sensitive. Most of them are small family
Yeah.
owned businesses.
Sure.
They say, you know what, I can run my business as long as the truck is on the road. I
Mhm.
don't care checking on the dashboard on whatever it is,
Yeah, no, like
etc.
the trash guys I work with, that's how it is. Everything's like paper receipt. Even with
Yeah.
M-Pesa, you send them M-Pesa, they call you 3 days later. Now, oh, I've received this payment. Who are you?
Who are
Where are
you?
you? Which account is this?
Yeah,
As
that
there's
actually still happens a lot.
yeah,
And so we did like a lot of those pivots, from this to owning our own fleet to software as a service.
yeah,
We essentially decided, of course, to stick with our model of having a certain control of our collection value chain
yeah,
through owning our own trucks, and maybe managing how the waste is managed at the end of its
yeah,
collection life cycle.
sure,
So that was more around from the business perspective. Of course, the fundraising one also is also always a journey. We were lucky that at our very start we were able to raise about like 100,000 USD.
yeah. Well, I was going to ask, like, how does one go about buying your own trucks, or getting your own fleet of trucks? Like, how does
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we were lucky in the first stages.
yeah,
The financing we raised, we were able to buy like two second-hand trucks.
uh-huh.
Yeah, that we deployed
And
into.
was this investment from kind of like angel investors or
So
VC or
it was like a foundation, and they do, of course, like VC investing,
yeah,
but their interest is more West.
yeah,
And I think they invested in about, I think 2019, 20. They invested in four companies,
uh-huh.
two Kenyan
Yeah,
and one one Ugandan and one Rwandese.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're able to kickstart like from that financing to, start growing the business.
Yeah.
Yeah. From there and going and going and going.
And so that money, I guess part of that would be like to help get trucks and things like that, maybe, or work
Yeah.
on the tech a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
much of the investment was used to, we acquired like, of course, our two trucks.
Yeah.
Yeah. We also had like some engineering stuff come on board, like part-time
Yeah.
process, because I mean, the coding was there, but we could do it, me and my co-founders,
Yeah.
because we all,
So it's
that was
from
our
your
background.
computer science
Yeah.
background, kind of, or
Yeah. So we didn't really need to spend much on it.
yeah.
Yeah. To actually, we've pretty much had like a stable platform since late 2023.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
No
Yeah.
more, I don't know,
No.
bugs and complaints and what.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's good when you have like a very defined, mission of what you're doing, I guess. I mean, it seems like you like I said, you pivoted and like but you have a pretty clear idea of like, what you're doing and what the app needs to be doing, right? It's
Yeah.
a pretty pretty focused business model, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that helps where you're not having to release a ton of new features or things that
Yeah.
are way complicated.
Yeah. Actually, my realizing in the early days, towards like the end of 2023, we realized actually you don't need to keep on like pushing out features, because there's
Yeah.
a time when we were crazy, like changing things.
Yeah.
You
And then that's when
added
things
like
break.
new
Yeah.
features, and it's very expensive
Uh-huh.
and not so necessary, especially if you haven't, figured out the other things around customer acquisition,
Yeah.
who is the customer, etc.
Sure.
That information.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I think was one of the things like I learned along the journey.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, with that's one of the things learnings we had, I think, with SafeBoat at my company as well, is that we had this idea of what you call super app, right? So
Yeah.
super app means you're going to do car taxi and bike taxi and buy airtime, buy data, pay your bills, do mobile money transactions. Super app is just doing everything. And we still kind of have that idea in a way, but
Yeah.
we at some point we kind of pivoted quite a bit more to say, what's our focus? Okay, transportation, moving people or goods from point A to point B.
Yeah.
And then once we did that and we kind of put that as the key focus and said, this is our strong point, we're going to focus on this.
Yeah.
That made the features a lot easier, the roadmap a lot easier to be like, yeah, we know now very clearly what our core mission and values are, and
Yeah.
we still can do these other things, but they're much less on the side, and the core focus is here, kind of like with you guys.
They're not as important as the other core.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you might be looking at a new project of something kind of outside of waste management, but
Yeah.
at the end of the day, your core business is the core app is the waste management, I'm assuming.
Yeah. It makes the whole engineering process. There's a time we had like 7, I don't know, 8 engineers
Yeah.
on top of my co-founders.
Yeah.
Who are all engineers, by the way.
Yeah.
And it was a lot like a lot of resources going towards engineering, developing, and
Yeah.
and we had neglected the customer acquisition.
Yeah.
But
It takes
when
a
you
lot
run
of
out of funds, then you
takes a lot of
realize
cash flow.
you need
Yeah.
customers
Yeah.
to continue paying you so that you can continue.
Yeah. And after your
Mhm.
initial 100,000 funding you had, did you have more funding rounds, or have y'all basically
So
funded through the
but I would say
the-
probably that was the easiest money we raised.
yeah.
Yeah, because at that point, we just had like big, when we were raising the 100,000, we had like our research papers and it's stuff. We had done studies. I don't know, algorithms we are going to incorporate, and to solve the garbage problem. There's like the garbage problem of how you schedule trucks to move from here to there to make efficiency and what. It was all theoretical.
Yeah.
So it was very easy to convince like the investors to get on board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then when you have the product you have to show.
Yeah. Then we signed up our first 400, let's say, customers. Yeah, I think that was early 2021.
Yeah.
And then we realized that we are spending more rapidly, that we may not even be able to make payroll in end of 2021.
Yeah, exactly.
December. I think that was like a wake up call. So between December 2021 to early 2022,
Mhm.
literally that's when like the biggest learning for my entrepreneurship journey happens. Like,
Yeah.
what do you do when you run out of
Yeah.
money?
There's no money to pay the payroll. Yeah.
Yeah, when there's no money to pay the
Yeah.
payroll, and it's your first time to actually have like that experience such as a situation.
Mhm.
I think that's where most businesses will like give up and
Yeah.
the business is dissolved.
Yeah.
We had like steer through the business through that period,
Yeah.
try to tell our staff, what, go out, acquire more customers,
Yeah.
we need more revenues. We try to bootstrap from that whole year was like bootstrapping and being like persistent as much as possible to make sure that we are steering the business
Yeah.
and making sure that we are bringing revenue into the business. And I
Which,
think it's then that we now even decided to focus. We saw, where is actually the money in this entire business? Is it in the software as a service? Is it,
yeah. Which one?
you know,
Where's the cash coming from? Yeah.
where's the money? Yeah. And I think for us it was so clear at that point.
Uh-huh.
There are about 1 million households,
Mhm.
Kampala and the neighboring municipalities. Even if you have, I don't know, 10% of those
Yeah.
or
You're in pretty good.
5%,
You're pretty good shape, right? If
yeah,
you, yeah,
that's
yeah,
good. Yeah, because on
yeah.
average people are paying about per month about $5.
Uh-huh.
If you have 100,000 households using, that's about 500,000 per month.
Yeah.
Uh, and the markups in the West business are not that terrible.
Yeah.
Because I mean it's just like pick up someone's trash and
Yeah. So you pay for the
merge
fuel.
them with the other, merge them with another home,
Yeah.
just same truck, same fuel.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's pretty much like made sense, and we decided like, to focus on just grow our revenues and cut down our expenses. So
Mhm.
meaning whatever we spend has to be within how much we are earning.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like a hard a hard shift, and no longer chasing like the VC whole thing of grow, sign up as many customers as was what. So
Yeah.
we decided to like roll back,
Uh-huh.
grow steadily. Uh,
So kind of like less funding, but more
yeah, being
organic.
like lean and organic as much as
Yeah, and
possible.
try to
Yeah.
try to catch as much revenue as you can internally to
Mm,
grow the company that way.
yeah.
It's a pretty smart way of doing it. I think, with SafeBoda, we've had a lot of investment as well, but we're at the point now, I feel like we try to take the same approach. Like,
Yeah.
we need cash flow, we need sustainability, we need profitability.
Yeah.
We need to do this internally, even if that means not quite growing as fast, or like, I mean, yeah, you could raise a few $1 million, go buy 100 trucks,
Yeah.
get 10 software developers,
Yeah.
right? But then, like you said, it's, where's
Yeah.
the money,
Yeah. And commercial capital is crazy
Yeah.
expensive.
Yeah.
Like uh,
You're giving up your company
yeah,
basically.
if you do not start showing initiative to make back that money,
Yeah.
it can be literally the first thing to kill you.
Yeah.
I've actually seen several co-entrepreneurs just go under the bus because they raised commercial capital
Mm-hmm.
and they were not able to hit like the second milestone, third milestone,
Yeah.
and the investor didn't release the last tranche.
Uh-huh.
And something which would have grown organically over time and be able to become profitable,
Yeah.
now all of a sudden is no longer in place because they were dependent on the investors' money coming in. Now the guy is like, "You didn't hit this milestone.
Yeah. So the
I'm not
more
giving you
money.
the next check."
Yeah.
Yeah. And
When
guys
they
have to
say
close.
like 80% of companies fail, or maybe 90%. I don't know how many like startups, but I think the majority fail, I guess.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I'm sure, like you said, you get past that first
Yeah.
milestone where you can't pay the payroll, and it seems like you guys have
It's
maybe
always the
made it past
baptism
that.
by fire for
Yeah.
entrepreneur.
It's very stressful. I mean, I've seen it happen a lot where you're
Yeah.
sitting there in the room going, "Where's the cash going to come from? Are we going to be profitable?
Yeah.
Are we going to be able to sell this product?"
Yeah.
I think SafeBoat has been around for 10 years now almost.
Yeah.
And yeah, we've been through this. It's a similar journey.
Yeah.
Almost every once a year, you start looking at the books and going, "Oh wow,
How are you going to
how
meet
is this going to happen?" And
Yeah.
luckily, I'm not the CEO. I'm just the tech guy. I'm the CTO. So, I don't, those investor conversations, all those things. I don't participate so much in that. I just I make sure the tech is working. But
Yeah.
it's a stress all around, even at the for the technical team level, because we got to pay engineers and keep things running.
I definitely tell you, for any young company,
Yeah.
CEO has gone like, of course, the initial you have a few customers and what.
Yeah.
Usually those are things which will keep you like up,
Oh, I can.
because when you're bootstrapping, it's not like you really have like a lot of money
Mm-hmm.
that's coming in,
Yeah.
but you also have this stuff they are dependent on the business for their livelihood, and
Yeah.
they need to be paid.
Yeah.
So usually there's a point in time of your business where you go through that phase of, how do I deal with this? Then over time you build like the thick skin on,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
strategies on how best to be able to navigate that.
Yeah.
uh, yeah. But my realization is always, the answer is always in, you need to add on more customers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because outside money is not, so
Yeah. Not.
it's not in like in abundance locally, especially in Uganda.
Yeah.
At least Kenya, maybe it's a different skill.
No, I think it's very tough. I mean,
Yeah,
even if you have confidence with investors, they're
yeah,
only going to invest for so long.
yeah,
You have to show that you're headed in the right direction.
yeah,
And they need their money back too, right? I mean,
yeah.
that's the investor mindset. I mean, they're not just giving you money for
It's not free
just for
money.
the humanitarian cause. It's not like
Yeah,
the USAID or something's coming in and just giving you some money.
yeah,
You're it's they need it back, at some point.
yeah,
But for most of them, I mean, unless it's a special grant or something, but
yeah,
they take it pretty seriously. And I think the other misconception, and maybe I don't know if you've seen this, but I always see the entrepreneurs like yourself or different companies, and a guy will come and say, I just closed $5 million funding,
yeah.
and you're like, wow, this guy's he's a millionaire. He's this is a rich guy.
Yeah,
And really, I think for most of the case, that's not the case, right? It's like,
yeah,
you're probably doing okay, the CEO of the company, but that money, that $5 million, isn't going to the pocket of the CEO. It's paying the developers and the buying trucks, and
yeah.
you know,
And it's not like, money released like in a one go.
yeah,
Because I think investors have now that thing of, they give you they commit the 5 million, but we shall give you every time you hit
yeah, yeah.
certain
You
milestones
do
and
you
what.
do the milestones that we need, and that's when you
Yeah,
you get that. So yeah, it's an interesting perspective on it. I mean, because I think a lot of the young guys, they hear that, they're like, oh, I just go and have my company and I get $5 million, and then I'm just laying back with
yeah,
all the girls and the rap video and
yeah,
everything, and I'm
yeah,
sitting on a yacht somewhere, and that's not happening.
yeah,
It's a tough life, and you got to perform for that money. It's quite interesting. I remember when I was in my university, there was a guy that he did the same program in my university that I did. He was a guy that's a lot older than I am. His name was John Doerr. He's a Silicon Valley famous investor. He invested in Google and I think Amazon, and
yeah,
he was the guy who did a lot of these initial deals. And I remember I was in like the year, it was the like the late '90s, and he was giving a presentation for our school. I think it's like a video, even a video presentation. They had him, talk to us, and he was saying then, like, yeah, I'm investing in this young company. We have this new one called Amazon. It's kind of interesting. We have Google. Yeah, I think Google is going to be really good one. I don't remember how many $1 million. It wasn't like seemed like that big of an investment at the time. I don't know if it's 10 million or I don't remember, but
yeah.
I remember thinking like, Google, what's this? Google,
Who
and
are these guys?
we're like, what are all these things? But while they're getting like $10 million, wow, they must be doing really well,
Yeah,
and it's you see this journey of guys go through this, and yeah, it's kind of this foreign world, as I guess, as you're a young person, to see
yeah,
like what's happening behind the scenes. All you hear is these big numbers. I mean, particularly for the average guy, living out in one of the informal settlements or
yeah.
someplace, and they start hearing these numbers. It's like, wow, I want to do that. But then
The
there's
guys
that
are
other
rich.
side of it. It's like you're not getting a lot of sleep, when
Yeah, you
so
have to pull up everything and work hard to hit milestones and etc.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I imagine I'm still kind of really interested in this idea of how you kind of mentioned you're a computer science guy or tech guy, and then you like, oh, I'm going to jump in and start
Into
running
West.
trucks for waste. That seems like such
Yeah,
an
everyone
interesting
always asks me that, like,
transition. Yeah,
yeah, how is it?
yeah.
So
But
of course, at university, I was always fixated in solving like, uh, trying to apply technology for, solving like community problems.
yeah, kind of beneficial things that are beneficial to
Yeah,
the
yeah.
community.
Because I think there's a time at university where you had either people going for gaming, like coding for gaming.
Yeah.
That's predominantly entertainment.
Yeah.
It wasn't always my thing of like interest. I just wanted to, how do you apply this technology? And I think in the early 2017,
Yeah.
from I think 15, 17, I think much of the guys who are doing like mobile apps, it was all about, either solving problems or doing games, and it's stuff like that.
Yeah.
Mine was more into solving like community problems, and when I landed on West, I was like, okay, no one is giving this area more focus.
Yeah.
Maybe I could do some disruptions and changes.
Thanks for coming to the Nairobi Gold Rush. You've taught us how to make the gold here today. So of course, we're talking about gold. We're talking about the rubbish on the side of the road. But I think your insights have been very valuable, and we look forward to having you on again one of these days. And it's great talking to you, Martin. And we'll catch up with you later.
All right. Thank you, Sunit.
Okay.
Yes.